Hello, and welcome to Relatively Crafty, a knitting podcast. This is episode 40? Is it 40? Maybe. It might be. It might be 39. I should really check that before I start podcasting. Anyway, I am your host, Christy. I reside in the Denver area of Colorado with my husband, Ron, and our two daughters, Tatum, who is 12, and Delaney, who is 9, and our new feline family member, Lilu, the tuxedo cat rescue, who is now laying at the base of the camera tripod, and I'm hoping that she is not going to start playing with it. I don't know if you guys recall from last week, but I had kind of talked about how we're still trying to, all of us become acclimated to each other. Lilu was rather standoffish at the first couple of days. She wasn't scared, which is what I was expecting, but she was kind of just distant. However, things seem to be working their way out, and she kind of follows me around the house now. Generally, the room that I am in is the room that she is laying in, and right now is no different. So if the camera goes wonky and it looks like there's an earthquake, it is probably the cat. So just know that. She still doesn't want to sit in anybody's lap, but she will tolerate if I hold her once or twice a day, very snug against my chest so that she is completely secure, and pet her while I'm doing that. And that goes for 15 seconds, maybe 30 if I'm lucky, and then she wants down, and that's fine. I'm letting her go down when she wants down. And then she really likes it when I scratch, her gels and the back of her neck, and she will sit there for a very long time, demanding both my hands scratching her neck and gels, and she just closes her eyes and looks very peaceful, and I'm okay to do that most of the time. Sometimes I'm knitting and don't want to, and then she tries to take my knitting away, but we are learning boundaries. Anyway, if you're looking for me on Ravelry, I am Cristi-Lael, and I am Cristi-Lael without the dash on Instagram. We also have a Relatively Crafty Podcast group on Ravelry where we talk about knitting and knitting related things and non-knitting related things too, which is totally awesome. And we have giveaways and KALs in there periodically. Right now we are having our summer Socks KAL, which is going on from June 21st to September 21st, the entirety of summer. And you are just encouraged to knit any kind of socks that you can, any pattern, any yarn. My only request is that 2 adult socks equal 1 entry, and 4 children's socks equal 1 entry. They do not have to be matching socks. They do not have to be from the same pair. And then also put in each entry in its own post in the FO thread, and I will be doing a random number generator for prizes from the FO thread and also from the chatter thread. So make sure that you chatter, and you can post your FOs in the chatter thread as well, so that folks can ooh and ah over your finished socks. I do ask that there is no chatter in the FO thread. So there we go. All right. This is going to be a very sock and yarn haul heavy podcast. The only things that I have to show you are socks, and then I have lots and lots and lots of yarn haul. I did the Denver yarn crawl, the yarn along the Rockies this past week, and hit 17 different yarn shops. I will get into that later, but I did buy a lot of yarn, so just be prepared that the yarn haul portion of this portion of this podcast is going to be rather long. But I will put that at the end, as I always do, so folks who don't care to see yarn hauls, and I know some people don't, I will admit that there are times when I'm short for time, and I will cut off a podcast when they start showing off all of their yarn hauls as well. Mostly because I don't have enough time to watch it, but also because sometimes that makes me want to buy more yarn, and I can't always do that. So anyway, I will tell you that I do have a lot of socks to show you, and that I don't really have anything else. So I hope you're going to like socks. I assume that if you're watching my podcast, you like seeing socks. I'm going to make that assumption safe, I think. So I start off with my FOs, my finished objects, and I have 2. Yay! If you recall from the past couple of podcasts, the past couple of weeks, I've been a little bit concerned about getting all of my socks, obligation socks, done for this month. Since I am in a couple of knit-alongs, 2 of them which are absolutely monthly, and then one that generally is monthly. The Lolo did it. Doesn't always happen every month, but most months. That's 2 to 3 pairs of socks that I have to get done each month, and sometimes I get stuck on other things. I get excited about knitting other socks, and then I find myself with not enough time, or barely enough time at the end of the month with which to knit my knit-along socks, and that's what I ran into this month. So I was very concerned. I can say that I have achieved both the KALs that I had, or all 3 of the KALs that I had to do for this month. Those socks are completed, and I have some commission knitting as well completed, or very nearly completed, I should say. So I'm feeling a lot better now with today's the 29th. There are 2 days left in the month, and I am for sure going to finish all of my obligations with regards to socks this month, which is always a very nice feeling. So my first FO are these, and this is the Desert Vista Dye Works KAL that I have been in all this year. You knit a pair of Desert Vista Dye Works socks each month, and you get some great prizes. For the first 6 months, if you knit a pair of socks within the regulations, you get a free skein. I did do the first 6 months of the year, and my free skein should be coming shortly. I expect that they're going to be shipped out in the next couple of weeks. And then if you knit 12 years, whoo, that would be a long time. Be a lot of socks. If you knit 12 months, then you get another free skein, and it is an exclusive colorway. So I am trying to do that for the entirety of this year. So this is my 8th pair of Desert Vista Dye Works socks, and I knit these out of the Viso base, which is the only base really that I buy of hers. I really, really like it, and I did the colorway, and the colorway is emeralds, sapphires, and prints. So it's very purple, blue, and green, and it's a great colorway. I still do have to soak it in some vinegar or citric acid or something, because it did come off on my hands quite a lot, the purple especially, and I want to make sure that I soak it before I put these in with my other socks to be washed. Also, I would like to soak it before I put it on my feet, because I have found that with stripy socks like this, where the color comes off in my hands when I'm knitting it, and I get like a line all across my finger, where this is the finger that I use to feed the yarn for knitting, and I find that when that happens, then I end up getting stripes on my feet after I take the socks off at the end of the day. So I am gonna soak these and hopefully get some of that loose color out before I wear them, and then wash them with my other socks. But I absolutely love these. The colors are great, and they're going to be fun socks to wear. I did basically my regular recipe. I did a Turkish toe cast on, toe up socks, obviously. I did a true afterthought heel, and then did I think 10 rows of ribbing, maybe 11 rows of ribbing, and 1 by 1 ribbing, and then bound off on Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off. And I will say, I know I've mentioned this before, but for any new viewers, when I do stripy socks, when I do non-stripy socks, I generally do 10 to 12 rows of ribbing. And then when I do stripy socks, I do as much ribbing so that I can end the top of my sock on a new color. So if the stripes are 5 colors each, then I will do 10 rows of ribbing, and then do 1 or 2 rows, and then bind off with the new color. Depends on how how big the colorway, or how long the stripe is. So yeah, that is generally what I do with my stripy socks, and I like how clean it ends. You get just that little bit of color there at the top. And then I'm generally guaranteed not to run out before I finish the sock. So and what I mean by that is, when you're doing the bind off and you get to where you've got like 10 stitches left to bind off and all of a sudden the color has changed to the new stripe, I generally avoid that by doing it this way. With these, because the stripes were long enough, when I changed colors, I did a single row of just knit instead of the knit one, purl one. I'll bring this closer so maybe you can see it. I don't know how, there, maybe that's better. So you can't really see it from the front side, the right side. From the wrong side, you can kind of see that there's a little line there where the colors change. And that's fine, because it's the wrong side, right? Nobody's going to see the inside of your sock. So what I do is, I knit the blue, knit one, purl one, and then when I got to the purple, I did one row of the purple in just knit, and then went back to knit one, purl one, and then when I got to the green, I did one row of just knit, and then did one row of knit one, purl one, and then bound off. And that gives me that. Next, I have the entry for my box of socks, which is a KAL hosted by Kristen of the Yarngasm podcast, Who Dies for Volenvine Yarns. And with my box of socks, I have picked, originally, at the beginning of the year, I picked 12 different stripy skeins of sock yarn that I'd had in my stash for a long time, and so I've just been pulling from those each month. I now have, 4 left? September, October, November, December. Yeah, 4 left. And so this was August. This is Blueberry Pie Studios in the My Box of Crayons colorway, and it's a gorgeous rainbow. These were absolutely a joy to knit. The yarn is a little bit thicker. It's almost a heavy fingering. So I did make some adjustments to my stitch count and stuff like that to make sure that these weren't too big, and I will be wearing these will be more for like really cold days, and when I'm wearing like my boots and stuff like that, because they are thicker. They're a little bit too thick to wear with my Converse Chucks, but I do absolutely love them, and I can't wait for the end of the year when I can finally pull out some of these box of socks, because they've been sitting in a box for a long time, and I'm excited to wear them. So yeah, same thing that I did with the last pair, I did with these Turkish cast-on, true afterthought heel, 1x1 ribbing, Jenny surprisingly stretchy bind off, and there you go. And that is all that I have for full completed FOs, but I do have 2 hos, which are half-finished objects. The first one you have seen as WIP several times. I finally finished the first sock, and that is this one. If you recall, I am knitting these in exchange for some personal Canadian dyer shopping that a friend of mine in Canada did for me. She grabbed 2 sock blanks from Bling Your String, which is dyed by Erin, who is one half of the Knitting with Tiffany podcast. I'll link that down below in podcasts that I mention. My friend Sam was going to a fiber festival in Canada where Erin was going to be vending, and she asked if I wanted her to pick up anything, and I said, yes, please pick me up some sock blanks from Erin. She did. And then when I offered to pay her for the sock blanks, she said, would you be willing to knit me 2 pairs of socks instead as payment? And I said, yes, I definitely would do that. And so I have been working on that. This is one of the socks that she asked me to make. She set the yarn for them. And this yarn is from stashables.co.nz. It's a New Zealand-based yarn, and the colorway is Rainbow Lorikeet. And this is not merino. It is 80% wool and 20% nylon, so it's going to be very sturdy, but it is not very soft. So it doesn't feel the best to knit with. It's like knitting with like an opal or a regia. It's not terrible. It's not like scratchy, but it's just not the best. And I'm not a fan of the way it has knit up. I loved the colorway in the skein, but I don't really like the way it is knit up, and so I've not really been enjoying making these so much. I've had to make sure that I have this project for places where I'm kind of distracted. Like I take it to church to knit with while I'm at church, because I'm not focusing on what I'm knitting at church at all. I use the knitting while the sermon is going on to help me focus on the sermon. And so I do that. I also knit on these when I'm watching TV, you know, that kind of thing, where I'm not so much paying attention to what my hands are creating, and I'm more focusing on what my eyes are seeing. And so I've tried to work on it during those times, and I did manage to get the first sock done, which is good. I have yet to cast on the second sock, but I will be doing that soon, and I will be keeping this bag by my spot where we watch TV in the evenings. We watch one show with the kids each evening, except for Mondays where we play board games together, but I will hopefully get this sock done fairly soon, although I won't have it done by August, rather by the end of August, which is fine. I have been in contact with the recipient, and she's in no hurry. So I feel better now that I've got this first sock done, and I'll get the second sock done soon. And then you know that I agreed to do 2 pairs of socks for my friend, so I have a hoe of the second pair of socks as well. This yarn is the Crafty Hippie. There's the tag. And it is an 80% merino, 20% nylon in the colorway Midnight Forest, which you can see is a striper. The stripes are pretty narrow, about four rows, and at some points there's only like 3 rows. It's like half the sock, it has 4 rows, and then half the sock, it's 3 rows. But this has been more enjoyable to knit. I'm not a fan of black. If you know me at all, you know that black is the one color that I completely despise. And so I don't knit for black. So I don't knit black for myself at all, ever. But I don't mind knitting it for friends. But I will say that it helps when the other colors in are bright and happy. This green is a nice olive green. Not very bright and happy, although my friends that were with me for the yarn crawl said those are perfect witch socks, and they really truly are. I mean, that is exactly a witch sock colorway. So anyway, I have knit the first sock, and I am well into the second sock, but I wanted to show you the hoe. Like with my other 2 stripy socks, I did a Turkish cast-on toe up, did a true afterthought heel, and I made these a little bit longer than I do for my own, but that is her preference. And I did the same thing with the 1x1 rib, and bound off with Jenny Surprisingly Stretchy bind off. However, with this one, you'll notice that the black on top is a little bit less, and that is because the stripes are a lot shorter. I did not do 2 rounds and then bind off. I just did 1 round. I also did not do a single. I also did not do a single knit row between each stripe when I started the new color, because the stripes are only 3 or 4 rows long. So I basically kept doing 1x1 ribbing all the way around, and then when I got to the black, I did 1 round of the 1x1 ribbing and then bound off. So there is that. And then, like I said, I have made good progress. I am well into sock number 2. Here it is, right here. These light bulb stitch markers are where the heel will go. I think I have to do 10 repeats of the striping pattern before I start the ribbing for the heel, or for the top rather. And I'm like 6 repeats in. So I expect that I will finish this today, or at least finish the body of the sock today, maybe not the heel. And then I should do the heel tomorrow. So these will definitely be done by the end of the month. And yeah, I'm excited to have these finished. These were done in a gobstopper ball, and I kind of like knitting from gobstopper balls. They're fun. So it's fun to watch it get smaller as the socks go on. So I have plenty left over for the finish of the sock, and she should have about 30 grams left over when they are all done. And that is all of the FOs and whips that I have currently. I did do not a single ounce of work on my mom's sweater this past week. I had warned you that I wasn't going to, because I was going to be focusing on those socks, and that is exactly what I did. So once I finish this second green and black sock, I will go back to mom's sweater and get it finished, because my mom's birthday is next month, and so I will already be sending her a present, and so I might as well include a sweater in there as well. Now the sweater will not be her present because, because one, she paid for the yarn, or for the fiber and the making it into yarn, and two, she already knows it's coming, and everybody deserves a surprise present for their birthdays, I think. So anyway, I will, I should have that finished, I would think by next week. I think that's a safe assumption that I would have that done. I have to still weave in all the ends, and then I just have to do the button band. That won't take me very long. So yeah. As is my habit, I do like to show you guys my planned socks for the next month when I get to the end of the current month. And since this is the last Tuesday in August, I will go ahead and show you what I have planned for my September socks. Now there's not very many, not as many as some of the previous months, where I've shown you like 6 different sock skeins, sometimes even more than that. But since I am kind of in sweater mode, I don't expect I'm going to knit as many socks as I normally have, or as I did in, like, say, April, May, and June. I knit a lot of socks in April and May especially. I think I got like 8 pairs done in one of those months. So I won't be knitting as many, but I do have still my KALs that I have to knit in, just 2 this month, and then I have some stuff that I, you know what, how about I just go through them, and then I can explain it to you as I go. So I have 4. 2 of them are for the KALs. This will be for my box of Socks KAL. This is another A Million Stars. If you don't know, she's one of my favorite indie dyers, and she's based in Canada. And this is a striper. It's called Electric Boogaloo, and it is just the most awesome blue and green, bright 2-color striper. It should have big, thick stripes. You know, I'm expecting about 10 rows. Normally, her 2 colors have about 10 row stripes, and yeah, I'm excited about it. This is another one that's kind of a little bit on the thick side, so I'll adjust my stitch count for that. And yeah, these should be really great, happy socks. So that's my box of socks for September. And then for my Desert Vista Dye Works, I am going to be doing this one. This is the DVD logo. It has the colors of the Desert Vista Dye Works logo. And this is the last DVD yarn that I have in my stash. So I have to purchase some more in order to continue on for the rest of the year. But I have to get 3 more skeins, and then I will be able to finish out the year. And yeah, I'm excited about this one. I love the colors in this, the orange and the blues, and then there's like a burgundy stripe in there as well, kind of a burgundy brownish. I think this is going to look really good. So expect to see those in September. And then I am also finally, hopefully, going to get through this sock blank, which was dyed by Erin of Bling Your Strings. This is one of the sock blanks that I got, that I am knitting those socks for my friend in payment for. And I had planned on knitting this in July. In fact, I took it with us on our trip to Estes Park and the Rocky Mountains, and then I never got to it, and then I planned on knitting it in August, and I didn't make that either. So I definitely want to knit this in September. It's just been waiting for me. I've even knit the little mini representation sock already, and it's just sitting there. So I really want to get to this. And once I get my friend's socks knit up, I won't feel so bad about getting to this. Like, I felt like I couldn't start another pair of socks until I had gotten hers at least on the needles, and now I'm pretty far through, so I feel pretty good about starting something else. And then lastly, I am going to knit this. Now, this I bought for my mom. My mom is a teacher, and I thought she would absolutely love these socks. And her birthday, as I said, is next month. Her 65th birthday is next month, so that would be a perfect time to knit her these socks. This is by the Yarn Enabler, and I know it looks kind of funky, but this is meant to be two mismatched socks. This skein is paper, so it's white with blue stripes for the lines on the paper, and then this sock is the pencil. So you have a main skein, which is just yellow for number 2 pencil, and then you have a little mini right here, which is kind of a charcoal, and then brown for the tip and the inside wood, the non-painted wood of the pencil. And then you have this mini, which is pink and gray for the silver nub and then the eraser of the pencil. So you have one pencil sock and one paper sock. And my mom is a teacher. Did I say that already? I'm sure, I know I've said it in other podcasts. Did I say it already in this one? I'm not sure. If I did, I'm sorry. If I didn't, my mom is a teacher. This is the year that she retires, so it's her final year as a teacher. So I definitely want to get these to her ASAP so that she can wear them at school. But even if she wasn't a teacher, I think she would appreciate pencil and paper socks. This is the kind of thing that my mom and I just get a kick out of. So anyway, for her 65th birthday, I'm going to be making her pencil and paper socks. And these should work up really fast, partly because I'm super duper excited to make them. I think they're just going to be super fun. Partly because I only have to knit one of each sock, so it's like, you know, each sock is a new exciting adventure. And then also partly because my mom has fairly small feet, so her socks knit up faster than mine do. So yeah, expect to see these soon. Like, I will be casting these on September 1st. I'm very excited about it. I almost wound these already because I really want to cast them on, but I knew that it would be a better presentation if I showed them to you in the skein first. So I waited. Probably going to be winding them today though, just FYI. And that is all the socks that I really need to get done in September. I may knit more, but I am not planning on knitting more. Like, I really just want to get those 4 done, and then sweaters. And speaking of sweaters, I will be finishing my mom's sweater, as I said, but I also really want to knit other sweaters. So I have talked about how I'm going to knit the flax sweater for my kids. Things might change with Delaney, but with Tatum I am definitely knitting the flax sweater, and I am going to be knitting it out of leftovers from my back shore sweater, because it's a pullover. So I have 3 and a little bit, well, like 3 and a mostel of Madeline Tosh DK in Oceana, which always comes across on the camera as like a true blue, but this is much more like a tealy blue. This is a good color for Tatum. I think that she will appreciate a sweater made out of this. Plus, it's a nice quality yarn. And so anyway, I am going to knit Tatum a flax out of this. And I'm going to be making, I think they have a 10 to 12 size, but she's tall for her age, and I think that I want her to be able to wear it for a couple of winters, so I think I'm going to make her like the extra small or small adult size so that she can kind of grow into it a little bit. I have plenty of yarn for that, so why not, right? So I will be starting this one. I think this is going to be the first one after I finish my mom's sweater that I'm going to be knitting. And then I was going to knit a flax for Delaney as well. However, she picked out some yarn on my yarn crawl, so and it's the wrong weight for a flax, so I may make some changes to my plans. I will either like knit a smaller size because it's a heavier weight yarn of the flax, or I will pick out a different pattern. We'll see how we go. But that is the only other thing that I have planned between now and next week. So yeah, that's it. All that's left is the yarn haul. Are you guys ready? It's exorbitant. And I was such a glutton. Definite wool piggery happened this week. I don't regret it though. I was on my first official yarn crawl. It was an amazing experience. By the way, if you have no interest in seeing my yarn haul, you could probably just cancel, just like cut the video off here. I'm basically just going to be talking about the things that I have added to my stash this week for the rest of the podcast. I do have a little bit of book talking, but that will be at the very end. So there are yarn crawls in Southern California, but they were all out in the LA and Orange County area, which were an hour plus from where I lived, and I never really knew the areas very well. Driving in downtown LA is horrific, so I didn't have enough people that, like, I didn't have anybody local to me who wanted to go, and so I would have to do it by myself, and it just didn't sound appealing. So I never went to any of the yarn crawls back home. However, when I heard about this one, which is huge, by the way, it's called Yarn Along the Rockies, and it's basically all of the shops in the Denver area. Now, it goes all the way up to Boulder and all the way down to Colorado Springs. So yeah, they're all kind of they're along the Rockies, hence the name Yarn Along the Rockies. So yeah, I went. There was 17 shops involved, and I went to all 17. It was quite an adventure, and it was quite tiring. I should say that my local yarn shop is Centennial Yarns, which is kind of in the middle. Here, I can show you the map on the back. I love this bag. These bags weren't included. You had to purchase them, but it was totally worth purchasing. So my yarn shop is right here, Centennial Yarns in Centennial, or Colorful Yarns in Centennial. So I had to go down south to Colorado Springs, and I had to go slightly north to Denver, and then further north all the way up to Boulder. That was the farthest we went. And there were several people from my local yarn shop who were going, and they planned on going on Tuesday and Thursday of this past week. So I podcast early so that I could go with them on Tuesday. However, I had to pick Delaney up from school on time, and so I ran out of time. So I went in a car with another person who had to be back by a certain time, and we didn't hit all the shops that they hit, the rest of the group hit. And then I couldn't go on Thursday at all because they were going to be going all the way up to Boulder, and there wasn't enough time. So I kind of had to do things a little bit differently than the rest of the group, but I did get to do some with some friends, so that helped. So Tuesday, we met at Colorful Yarns, which wasn't open yet, and we drove out to Conifer to go to the Knit Nook. And so that was my official, and that was a really cute shop. Now, it's too far away from where I live to go to often, but I did like it, and it's a knit shop and a coffee shop together. So you have good things to eat and drink, and then fun yarn to knit on. And I will say that if I lived in the area, I probably would have purchased, or I would have, and I will say that if I lived in that area, I probably would go by there and knit. It was very inviting. And I tried to purchase from most every shop. I didn't purchase from every shop, but I came close. There were a couple of shops that just didn't have things that I wanted. And then I got to a certain point where I was like, I have spent too much money and now I'm feeling guilty, and maybe I should just skip it because nothing in here is screaming my name. And I still have so many other shops to go to, so yada yada yada. Anyway, since this was the first shop, I didn't feel bad about purchasing at all, and I did find this gorgeous skein of Malabrigo sock in the colorway Reflecting Pool. So it's just like a tonal blue. It's such a pretty color. And I got this one as opposed to something else because I have a lot of fingering weight yarn, but almost all of it is variegated or stripy. So when I go to want to pair things together, I can't very often do that. So if I want to do a 2-color shawl, I'm kind of in a bad position because I don't really have very many tonals or solids. So trying to rectify that. So I got this, and it's gorgeous, and I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do with it. I have no plans for it, but I have it in my stash. I could make a pair of tonal socks, or use it for a hat, or make it for a shawl. There's lots of things I can do with it, and it's just such a pretty blue. I could just sit and stare at it and admire it for a while. So that was the first shop. Oh, and I will say that in each shop, you got a button for your map. You also had a passport that you got a stamp for, and for every 4 shops, you got a charm to put on this uber large safety pin, and the first 3 are the same, and then when you hit the last shop, the 17th shop, you got a special completion charm. And I will post a picture here, the one that I posted on Instagram when I hit my last shop. So I hadn't originally planned on hitting all the shops, but when I found out that I could collect a whole set of buttons and put them on the thing and finish a set, yeah, I had to do that. So anyway, so we hit Knit Nook, as I said, and then we drove to Woodland Park, which is quite a drive. That's like close to an hour away. So there was a lot of driving to do to hit some of these little bits of shops. You can see here in Denver there was several that were put together and they were quicker to get to, but these two, that was quite a drive. And we went to Nikki's Knots, and Nikki's Knots is a shop that I had already been to before. My parents were thinking about moving to Woodland Park, and so I'd gone there twice with each of my parents, once each time. And when I went with my mom, we stopped off at Nikki's Knots, and I had already purchased some yarn from her then, so I did not purchase anything this time. But it is a cute shop, and it's very small, but she said that she is relocating. So next year it should be quite a bit bigger shop, and I'm excited for her for that. And then the last shop that I hit before we had to get back to pick up Delaney was the Woolly Works knit shop, which is in Denver, downtown Denver. Colorado Springs, downtown Colorado Springs. And I didn't purchase anything. I did purchase something. What did I get there? Oh, and I didn't purchase any yarn there, but I did purchase this bag there. So that is the only thing that I got from there. And she had an alright shop as well. I don't know that it would be one that I would frequent very often. I don't know that I would go back there very much. Partly because parking was kind of a hassle. Partly because it's an hour away from my house. But there was a lot of commercial yarns and not a lot of indie yarn, and that's what I'm kind of focusing on for my own personal knitting, you know. So then we rushed from Woolly Works in Colorado Springs, came back to where I live, and picked up Delaney from school. And then after that I had some time, so the gals that I was with decided that we would go to some of the local shops here in my area, Littleton, Centennial area, and hit those. So we went to Blazing Star Ranch, which is in the back of a vacuum store, which is kind of an odd place to put your yarn shop, but apparently it's family run. They own the vacuum store. They also have alpacas, and so they started dedicating part of the shop to their alpacas, and I purchased this skein there. This is MJ Yarns, which is a local dyer, and I ran into MJ Yarns when I was in Estes Park, and I went to the Stitchin' Den, which is the LYS there, and I just fell in love with this colorway. This is called Fruit Juice, and look at all those colors, guys. I think this is the most gorgeous colorway. I'd love to know what technique they used to make it look like that. It's just amazing. And this is going to be a first for me because this is 75% superwash Corriedale and 25% nylon. I've never knit with Corriedale before. So it's got a little bit of a halo. It's a little bit looser spun, yeah, not as tightly spun as some of the other sock yarns I use, but it doesn't feel unpleasant. It's actually, you know, nice and soft, and so yeah, I'm excited about knitting this. I just really love this colorway. So that's what I got at Blazing Star. I also found out that she does. She has her own alpaca flock. Are they called flocks for alpacas? Anyway, she has her own alpacas, and she was also selling yarn made and fiber from her alpacas. So I have now a local place that I can go to get like a sweater quantity of alpaca yarn if I want to. She had some gorgeous yarn there made from her alpacas, and they were beautiful skeins, and I could totally see making a nice warm alpaca sweater. Super excited about that. So anyway, also she teaches spinning, and she had wheels there, and I kind of talked to her about the fact that I struggled with spinning off a drop spindle, that I just didn't really enjoy it, and that I'd been interested in learning how to spin on a wheel, but didn't want to invest the money in a wheel if I didn't like it, and hadn't found a place that gave classes and rented wheels, and she does both. And so yeah, when I finish school and I have a little bit more free time, not free time, because I have lots of free time, but I have to like focus on school. When I don't have to focus on school anymore, I think I'm going to try taking a spinning class from her and renting one of her wheels and checking it out. So we did that, and then the last shop that we went to that day before knit night was the Wooden Spools, which is in Littleton. I'm sorry, they're both in Inglewood. Blazing Star Ranch and Wooden Spools are in Inglewood. And Wooden Spools I fell down in, not physically, like yarn-wise. I had Delaney with me and was just walking around, and they had a really nice sale on some yarn. And I realized that I could get a sweater quantity for a fairly decent price. And then Delaney was like, "Oh, can you make me a sweater out of that too?" So I got 2 sweater quantities there. I hadn't planned on doing that. I was really only like looking to get a single skein from each shop, you know, but I didn't. So for Delaney, I got 2 skeins each in blue and purple, And this is Ella Ray Chunky Merino Superwash, and it's just a nice base. It's 100% merino wool, and it's got a nice twist. It looks squishy and fun to knit with, and she wants stripy sweater. So as I said, this is not the right weight to knit a flax sweater, but I might be able to make some adjustments and still make one for her, or I can just find another pattern. But I have 4 skeins for her socks, or for her sweater rather, and then for me, I picked up 8 skeins in this really pretty green. And I just really like this colorway. They had so many colors to choose from, and almost all of them had enough skeins for a sweater for me, and so I really struggled trying to pick a colorway. But I was trying to make sure that I didn't get something that I already had a similar color of for a sweater in my stash, and this is one that I didn't. So, so yeah, I'm not sure what I'm going to make with it for me, but I am going to make a sweater for myself out of this, and I'm excited about it. I like knitting with chunky wool, but back home I could never make a chunky sweater, and when I did, I ended up not being able to really wear it because it was always too warm. But here, winters work for chunky wool sweaters, so I'm going to make myself one. I have plenty in my queue. I'm sure I can find one that's going to work. Then, after that was over, I went back home, got Tatum from school, or from the bus, and then went home and put together some dinner for the family. Actually, I think I put something in the crock pot that day. And then ran back to the yarn shop for knit night. And you would think, Christy, you've just gone to 5 different knit shops. Was it 5? Yeah, 5 different knit shops today, and purchased a lot of yarn already. You don't need to purchase anything from your LYS that you are at every single Tuesday night. However, we know me, right? So I got my pin from Colorful Yarns. I also got my my stamp for my passport and my pattern. Did I mention they gave out a pattern at each shop? They had a crochet pattern and a knitting pattern at each shop. So I got all of these patterns. I'm not going to make all of them. Some of them are really, really simple and not anything that I would be interested in, but there are some that are super duper cute, so I will be making some of them. And then I sat down in they have a separate room that is for sitting and knitting and visiting, and that is also where they keep all their sale yarn. Yeah, I picked up another 4 skeins of yarn. These 4 skeins of yarn. This is Knitted Wit in her DK Merino, DK Superwash Merino, and I thought, let me throw it all on the ground. I was thinking how I have all of these left over. I think I have 3 or 4 skeins left over of this. This is the Verdant Griffin DK in the Downcast Donkey that I used for my backshore sweater, and I have enough to pair with something else, but not enough to be a sweater by itself. So I thought if I take these and pair it with this and do like a stripe or colorwork yoke or something like that, that would be a nice, they would go well together. So that is what I am going to do. So I picked up these 4 skeins, and they were all on sale except for this red one. They were a good price. So now I have those. And again, I don't have a pattern. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to knit with it, but it will be a sweater, and I get to use up the rest of this Downcast Donkey because it was such a lovely yarn to knit with. So that was Tuesday. That's all the shops that I hit. 6 shops, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 shops that I hit. But I had 17 to go, or 17 total. So I had 11 more to go. And now that I knew that there was like a whole collection of buttons and whatnot, I decided to go ahead and make plans to hit the rest of the shops. So I knew I couldn't go on Thursday with everybody. There were folks that were talking about going on Saturday to the northern shops, the ones in Boulder and that area. But that left some in Colorado Springs that I'd missed and some in Denver. So I decided to take Wednesday, which is normally a day that I do homework. I decided to go ahead and take Wednesday and go by myself. So I dropped the kids off at school and went straight out to Colorado Springs. I listened to an audiobook on the way. I got half an audiobook done during that day, and I hit the shops that I'd missed. So on Wednesday, I went to You and Me, which is in Colorado Springs. That was a great shop. That was one of the highlights of the trip. I got there about half an hour before they opened, and so I just sat in the car and knit. And they saw me a few minutes before they opened, and they came out and they waved me in. And they were just so inviting. And the shop was this long rectangle, and they had a huge table in the middle. So it was very, you could tell that they really encouraged people to come and sit and knit. Not so much about selling yarn and making money off of selling yarn, but it was more about having the knitting community be a community in their area, which is another thing that I get from Colorful Yarns. That's really something that Tiffany, the owner, does. She really focuses on community. So anyway, so I walked through there, and there was several things that I wanted, but I limited myself to one skein because, as I said, I still had 11 shops to go, or 10 more after this one. And I'd already bought a whole sweater quantity, so I was trying to be very good. So I only got this, and I'm super duper excited about this. This is Scandalous, and it's a sunset sock set in her Sophia base, which is an MCN. And I think that it is supposed to knit up with stripes on the cuff, or the leg of the sock, and the rest of it is solid, and I love that idea. And I love these colors. So yeah, I'm super duper excited about this. And you can see that there are 2 50-gram skeins. So they're meant to be matching. I might even knit them 2 at a time, although I don't often enjoy that. But yeah, you should see these pretty soon. Like if I finish all of my other September socks, I could see myself pulling this out because I'm very excited about this. I want to see what it's going to look like knit up. So there is that. And then I drove to Everything Alpaca, which was in Castle Rock. It's the only shop in Castle Rock, which is too bad because Castle Rock is still a fairly decent sized town. And this was not, this was a very small shop, and basically just sell alpaca yarn and other alpaca items. They also had their own flock. Did we agree that flock is what you call a bunch of alpacas? I don't know. So I had a harder time finding something that I wanted. Alpaca yarn is amazing, but I don't often need a single skein of alpaca yarn. They did have some Misty alpaca sock yarn that I almost got, but I didn't really like the colorways. So I ended up grabbing this. And this is just a 50-gram skein of alpaca silk, which is by Blue Sky alpacas. And so it's just one 50-gram skein, and I thought I could do a pair of fingerless gloves out of this. It's super duper soft. It feels like heaven, guys, and it's a gorgeous color. The colorway is crabapple, and it's one of my favorite shades of orange, and it's kind of like a red orange. And so it's a blend. It's 50% alpaca and 50% silk, so it just feels amazing. I probably will knit this up pretty soon too, because it's going to be a quick, easy project, and I just have to find the exact right fingerless gloves for it. Excited about that. I stopped off at Piney Creek Yarns, which is in Parker, And I stopped there. I had driven by it once before, but they were closed. So I stopped in there and got my stamp, and they didn't have a lot of sock yarn that I was interested in as well. Great for like sweaters, lots of like, not big box yarns, but kind of, uber commercial yarns. Not a lot of indie dye. They did have some Wonderland yarns, and they had another indie dyer that I can't think of, but not really sock yarn, indie dye yarn. It was like DK and worsted indie dyed yarns, which you don't see very often, and that would be cool for somebody who doesn't knit socks, but since I'm primarily a sock knitter, I really wanted indie dyed sock yarn. So I didn't get any sock yarn with them, but I did get this skein. I was just so drawn to this colorway. This is Ella Rae Lace Merino Aran, and I Like Ella Rae's bases. They have a nice squishy base. So this is Aran weight yarn, and it is in the festive colorway, and it's just got all of these great colors. So I think that I'm going to make a hat out of this, and I am looking to do that soon. Like, you might see a finished hat next week, because I'm excited to knit this up and see how it knits up. Let me take the tag off so you can see all of the great colors. Yeah, lots of pretty colors in there. And then I drove to two of the Denver shops. I hit Bags by Cab, which is a really small shop and is only slightly yarn. It's like 40% yarn and 60% purses and stuff. So I didn't really purchase anything there. And the yarn that they sold was like knit picks, and I didn't really have much need for that. And then after that, I went to Fiber Bliss, and Fiber Bliss was a lovely shop. It was also on the small side, but much larger than Bags by Cab, and they had Madeline Tosh, and they also had fabric. So it was half yarn, half fabric, but they had some really good yarn. They had their own shop brand of yarn. And they had some indie dyed yarn, and there were several things that I would have liked to have purchased from them, but again, I was limiting myself to one. So I picked up this. This is Madeline Tosh Prairie, which is a lace weight 100% merino single ply yarn, and it's got a lot of yardage. It's 840 yards, and I grabbed it not making the connection that this is lace weight, because I thought this might go with my my single that I got, my solo from Stranded, which is orange, and this has got, I don't know if you can see, but this has got all kinds of speckles in it, all different color speckles. This colorway is called Cosmic Wonder Dust, and it's got all the speckles. But when I came home and put it up against my Stranded is much thicker. It's fingering weight single, and this is a lace weight single, so they're not going to work together. But I figured I'll find something for this. It's gorgeous. I'm sure I can find something for it. So I got that at Fiber Bliss. And that was the end of Wednesday for me. I ran out of time. I had to go pick up Delaney. I didn't want to make Delaney go back to Denver with me to hit the other two shops, so I said I'll just do it later. Thursday, I didn't go anywhere. I focused on my homework that I was supposed to have done on Wednesday. And then Friday, Ron had off. And we originally were going to go to IKEA and kind of deal with my shelving issues and get a ceiling fan and that kind of thing. But Ron had a lot of homework to do, and he just wasn't feeling it. I wasn't really feeling it either. So we decided instead to go get some breakfast, and I asked him if he would be willing to go to these two Denver shops with me. We like going on adventures like that. So we drove to Denver and hit Lamb Shop, which is a really cute shop, and I could see it being great for people who knit a lot of sweaters and whatnot. It had a lot of stock, and it was very well presented. Unfortunately, it didn't have a lot of sock yarn. and what sock yarn it did have, I didn't really want, so I didn't actually purchase anything from Lamb Shop. But it was a nice shop. I could see wanting to go there if I was looking for a sweaters quantity. And then after that, we hit Fancy Tiger, which is probably the most famous yarn shop in Denver. It's one that the grocery girls go to when they are in town doing their craftsy recording. And it is a very cool shop. It's very hipster and in vogue, and I felt like I wasn't cool enough to shop there. They had so many cool things. Fancy Tiger is a multi-craft store, so they have lots of yarn, but they also have lots of fabric, and they also had, like spinning fiber and that kind of thing. So I was really, really impressed. And while I was there, I noticed they also had Madelinetosh Prairie, which is the lace weight. So I got this. This colorway is Citrus, which goes perfectly with the Cosmic Wonder Dust. They have the exact same orange in them, and so I think I'm going to pair these two together and make myself a lightweight sweater. I have now, almost 1,700 yards in lace weight. That should be plenty to make a top. Not a sweater, but like a top, a blouse, a shirt. So I'm going to put these together, maybe like a featherweight or something like that, striped. I'm super excited about it. They look great together. So I have that. So that's all I got at Fancy Tiger. And Ron came into Fancy Tiger with me. He stayed in the car for Lamb Shop because he was working on something, and couldn't stop at the moment. But he came into Fancy Tiger with me, and he's like, this is a pretty cool shop. I actually kind of enjoyed going with you. So yeah, that was just fun. And then we went and ate some food, and we actually ate lunch because by that time breakfast was over. And then we went home and worked on homework. But it was a nice day together. And then Saturday, I met up with 3 other friends who hadn't been able to go on Thursday either, and we hit all the northern shops. So we drove up and hit all of these in Boulder, in Lafayette, and in Louisville. So the first shop we went to was Finger Play Studios in Louisville. Such a cute shop, guys. It's in downtown Louisville, which is a small town, and it's a small shop, but it was so adorable. And they were so embracing. Totally, like, I was bummed that this was not closer to me, because I would go there regularly. That one and You and Me in Colorado Springs were the two that I'm like, oh man, I really wish you guys were closer, because I could just hit those three shops, those two and Colorful Yarns on a regular basis and just be happy as a pig in mud. But I was there, and I saw they had several things that I would have liked to have bought, but I did only buy the single skein, and then I found that it was the home shop of Barmaid Knits, which, if you recall, Barmaid Knits is one of the prizes that we have for our Socks KAL. She contacted me and donated a prize, so it was so exciting to see her yarn there, and then to find out that that's the shop that she goes to for knit night, and yeah, so I left her a little note, and it was just cool to make that connection. This is what I ended up purchasing at the shop. This is Malabrigo Rios in the colorway Aniversario. And I saw this at several shops. This colorway, not in Rios. I think I saw it in like lace, or not lace, yeah, maybe even Malabrigo lace, but I saw it in sock, and I saw it in like the worsted. But I didn't get it in any of the shops. But this one was just calling my name, and I've come to realize that it's a little bit similar to the LRA that I got, which is kind of a bummer, but I think they're different enough. This will probably be another hat. I'm excited about it. It's just got so many great colors in it, and so that's what I got at Finger Play. And then we went to... Then we went up here to Lafayette and went to Miu Miu, and that was a cute little shop. They had these dragon scales, and you could make dragon eggs and dragon scale fingerless gloves and stuff like that, and that was way adorable, but it was going to be a little pricey to get enough scales and the pattern to make one of the items, and I wasn't sure if I would actually wear them, so I opted out. But I did see that they also had MJ yarns, and they had all of these little minis that were just varied weights, and they had a skein of this fruit juice there as well, and so I was able to make sure that the minis that I got complemented the fruit juice as well as I thought they did. And so I got these to do for heels and toes when I make this sock. So I'm excited about that. I think this is going to make some really cute socks. And you know that I love contrasting heels and toes. Oh, and I forgot to say, actually, I got another thing at Finger Play Studios. I hadn't planned on doing this, but while I was checking out, some of my friends were standing there waiting to check out, and they saw these. I don't know where these are from, but it's a small business, and she wholesales to Finger Play Studios. But it's these little tins, and they have things in them. So there's a little sheepy measuring tape. There are 2 of these little star stitch markers. I'll post a picture in a second. There's these locking stitch markers. There's 2 of those. A little mini set of scissors. And then there's a super strong magnet up here with 3 different darning needles and one of these crochet hook tools. And yeah, it's a little notions tin that you just throw into your knitting bag and you're ready to go. So I could totally have 85 of these and just throw them in each one of my project bags. I think it's an amazingly clever idea. It was a little bit on the pricey side. I think it was $20. But purchasing one and using it wouldn't be too bad. I do like that it came with everything, and they're super cute. So, yeah. But I absolutely loved it, and mine has a little sheep on it. Okay, so we're down to the last 2 shops, and we hit Shuttles, Spindles, and Skeins. Shuttles, Spindles, and Skeins, which was in Boulder, and that was another shop that I didn't really purchase anything at. It was a big, big shop. The biggest shop I'd ever gone to. Huge. And they had so many things. And they were also a multi-craft shop. So they had things for weaving, they had things for dyeing, for spinning, just everything you could think of. Any kind of fiber-related craft, you could find a plethora of supplies there. But I wasn't all that keen on their yarn. It was a lot of, more commercially produced yarn, and it was okay, but, not really something that I really wanted to spend a lot of money on, especially with all the money that I had already spent. I may have been able to find something if that had been one of the first shops that I had gone to, but since it was the second to the last shop. And then the last shop that we went to was Gypsy Wools, also in Boulder, and by that time I was beat up from the feet up. We had driven a lot. I didn't drive. I ended up riding and knitting most of this sock that day. But still, I had gone to so many shops for the past several days. 17 shops in a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 17 shops in 5 days, and I was tired, but I did find something there. This skein, this is Malabrigo sock in Cereza, which is gorgeous. And actually, Tiffany at Colorful Yarns has this in Rios. This is such a beautiful red, and I would love to buy all the Rios that she has and make a sweater out of it, but I can't justify that. expenditure right now. So, anyway, so I got this. Again, I don't have any plans for this, but I do know that I needed more solids and tonals to pair with other things in my stash, and so that's what I can do with this. And there you go. That was my yarn trek. Hit all 17 shops. When I got to the last one, Gypsy Wool, they took my passport and turned it in, and that made me qualify as an entry for the grand prize. I am assuming, since I haven't heard from any of the shops, each shop had their own prize basket as well, and then there were 3 grand prizes. I'm assuming now, since the thing is over, it's been over since Sunday, and I haven't heard anything, that I didn't win any prizes, but that's fine because it was still such a great adventure, and I got to hang out with my yarny friends, and I got to see all the yarn shop, well, most all the yarn shops in my area. There are some that weren't a part of the yarn crawl, but yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it. It was tiring, but I still really enjoyed it, and I don't know if I would hit all the shops again next year. It was a lot of work, but I definitely know some shops that I want to hit again. If I'm ever in Colorado Springs for some reason and I have some time to spend sitting and knitting, I'll definitely go to You and Me. And if I'm ever in Louisville, I will definitely stop off at Finger Play Studios. You know, there's places that I've found that I definitely want to go to again. I will go back to Fancy Tiger. They had a lot of things that I could possibly purchase, but one thing that kind of was solidified in my head as I'm going to all of these shops in the area is that I'm very fortunate to live near Colorful Yarns and have that be my LYS, because as much as I liked the other shops, that Colorful Yarns is best. It just is. It has such a great stock. It's so inviting, and I love the group of knitters there, and yeah. Still very happy that my LYS is my LYS, and yeah, so it was a great experience, and I'm glad that it's over. And now I have to figure out how to fit all this stuff back in my stash, because I'm starting to run out of room. I do have more yarn that I've gotten in since my last podcast, but I think that I will save that for next week. Because I've just shown you a lot of yarn. Plus, I'm starting to get tired of talking, so I will show that to you guys next week. But it is amazing, and I'm super duper excited about it. So there's that. So the last section of my podcast, I guess, is what I'm reading. We finished watching The Shining. That's not very good. So my complaint with the Stanley Kubrick movie was that, yes, it's a good horror movie, but it's nothing like the book. And it isn't anything like the book. But it is a good horror movie. My complaint with the miniseries that was produced in the 90s with Steven Weber and Rebecca De Mornay is that it's really close to the book, but it's not a very good horror movie. It wasn't scary. I will say that Steven Weber did a great job once Jack Torrance really becomes, what he's destined to become in the book. But that build-up, which is 60 to 70% of the story, was kind of a letdown. And some of the dialogue and acting was poorly done. The dialogue was cheesy and the acting was overacting. The ending was a lot better, but yeah, it was just okay. It was enjoyable. We were able to get through it, but it was just okay. So yeah, but we reread the book and then watched the miniseries, which is what we wanted to do, we intended to do, and we did it. And we do have the second book, Dr. Sleep, which deals with Danny, who is like 5 in The Shining, deals with Danny as an adult. And I'm excited about that. Ron is in the middle of reading another book. Once he finishes that, we'll start reading The Shining together. So I'm excited about that. But I mentioned that while I was doing the yarn crawl on Wednesday by myself, I listened to a half of an audiobook, and I loved this book. This is The Knife of Never Letting Go by Patrick Ness, and it is the first in the Chaos Walking trilogy, which I guess could be categorized as a YA book because the protagonist is a month away from turning 13, but I don't really feel like this is a YA book. I feel like this is an adult book just with a young main character. So I listened to the first half of this book, and then I finished it on Friday, I think? No, Saturday? Something like that. I finished it yesterday. What am I talking about? I finished it yesterday. Loved this book. 5-star book. This is the story of Todd, who is a month away from turning 13, which is when you become a man in his town, Prentice Town. And the thing about Prentice Town is that there are only men there. All the women are gone. They've all died from a virus. And this virus has also caused all the men to be able to hear each other's thoughts. They can also hear the thoughts of the animals. And so Todd is getting ready to become a man, and he's got his dog Manchi, who he can hear talk, hear his thoughts, and then there's the men in the town. And something about the town is wrong. And Todd is starting to discover that. And this was so good. I listened to it on audio, as I said, but I would recommend the physical book as well. It's got like sort of mixed media. You have interesting things, you know, this large font here is a squirrel talking. So it's just cool. But the audiobook is amazing. The narrator did a fantastic job on it. And I just found myself so involved in the story. I was so impressed. It was suspenseful, totally pulled you in. There was moments where it broke your heart, where you were like, what is going on? And there's kind of a mystery, you know, to it. And yeah, so I just like flew through this book. Absolutely loved it. And then I have started the second book in the series, which is The Ask and the Answer. And then the third book, which I will read soon, is Monsters of Men. And so I can't tell you much about The Ask and the Answer, partly because I haven't gotten far into it, but also because if I tell you things about what happened in this book, then you will get spoiled for what happens in this book. But totally get this. And honestly, Patrick Ness is one of my favorite authors as well. I have read most all of his works, and I have given 5 stars to most of them. I think a couple got 4 stars, but he wrote, you might be familiar, they just made a movie out of it, but he wrote, what's it called? A Monster Calls, which they just made into a movie. What did it come out this year, last year? So yeah, that's, you might have heard of him through there, but absolutely loving this series. Highly, highly recommend it so far. And yeah, okay. So I think I'm going to go ahead and call this done. I'm tired. My mouth and tongue are tired, and I'm hungry. So I'm going to use my mouth and tongue for something other than talking, and I'm going to eat lunch. So have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday, and happy knitting, guys.